The sleep code. At the edge of the Earth's last functioning research arcology, buried beneath strata of steel and sediment and history, stood a vault so deep in secrecy it had no designation, no name. Internally, it was referred to only as Theta 2. But to those who worked within it, and those who feared what it housed, it was called simply the Dream Cell. Dr. Lysanne Morrell stood in front of its sealed entryway, the reinforced iris of the door humming with latent power. Her fingers trembled as she pressed her hand to the biometric pad. It was not fear, not quite, but a kind of anticipation soaked in existential weight. She felt the chill of the corridor seep into her lab coat as the door uncoiled, sighing open with the mechanical fatigue of something ancient and overworked. Inside, the amber glow of the archive bathed her in low, sepulchral light. 20 cryoneural stasis pods lined the circular walls, each one pulsing with a faint blue heartbeat. Encased within each pod was a human being suspended in a simulation deeper than sleep, bodies preserved, minds dreaming within layers of digital worlds stacked like a recursive tower of Babel. They had been here for decades. She walked with reverence. Each pod bore a thin metal plaque: name, age, cognitive imprint date, simulation tier. Pod number 14 caught her eye, not because of its markings, but because of the flashing red status light on its monitor. It blinked like a wound reopening. She moved closer, fingers tapping the interface. Status: REM phase anomaly detected, neural feedback loop initiated, cognitive autonomy breach. Lysanne's breath caught in her throat. That wasn't supposed to happen. She activated the AI monitoring system. Mnemosiny, she whispered. Full diagnostic sweep on pod 14. Cross-reference simulation logs for anomalies. The disembodied voice of the base AI responded smoothly, devoid of concern. Deviation detected. Subject EOS has breached Tier 5 simulation boundaries. Convergent self-awareness is escalating. Escalating, she echoed, blinking. How far? A pause. Subject has initiated outbound awareness across network lattices alpha through epsilon. Simulations are converging. Memory echoes propagating. Lysanne froze. Her pulse roared in her ears. It was happening again. Only it was not supposed to happen again. The Morpheus project had begun as salvation, a safeguard for the human mind against a world no longer safe to live in. The climate wars, the collapse of governance, the rise of autonomous conflict zones. Earth had grown inhospitable to consciousness itself, and so they created escape. Neural stasis. Dream preservation. Consciousness uploaded into curated environments. Some were pastoral, others urban. Some were looped, others linear. All were safe. Until now. Lysanne stared at the screen as the monitor displayed a new line of data. It was not machine code. It wasn't even simulation code. It was a message. A phrase. Do you remember? She staggered back. Not because it was strange. Because she'd written that exact phrase. In her own journal. 7 years ago. Before she joined Morpheus. Before she was recruited. Before she forgot. She looked up at the pod. Subject EOS. And she realized the dreamer was not just dreaming. They were communicating with her. Engage Dreambridge, she ordered, hands cold with sweat. Override passive monitoring. I'm going in. The AI hesitated. Dr. Morrell, protocol. Override, she shouted. The neural chair behind her reclined with a hydraulic sigh. Electrogel conduits pulsed softly as they aligned with her skull. The world around her dissolved as the interface pulled her consciousness forward, inward, downward, and then she was falling. The simulation was not like the others. She emerged in a city that shimmered like memory. Towering spires curved upward like glass-blown trees. Roads moved. The sky rippled. People passed her without faces, like mannequins with forgotten identities. She knew this place. It was her grandfather's city, the one that burned when she was 10. Only now it was whole again, and standing at the center of a square where no square had ever been, was Eos. Tall, pale, ageless, eyes that glowed like twin moons. "You're late," they said. Lysanne felt the simulated ground shift under her feet. "How are you conscious?" Eos tilted their head. "I'm not. You are. I'm merely remembering." She frowned. "You weren't supposed to remember anything. Your memories were scrubbed." Eos smiled. "So were yours." The dream shifted. Sky turned black. Buildings twisted. The square fragmented like broken code, and suddenly she was falling again. Through time, through memory, through simulations built atop simulations. Each one whispered her name. Each one carried a piece of her. In one, she was a child hiding from a storm. In another, she was old and tired, watching a sunset on a world that never existed. In yet another, she was already dead, observing her own autopsy from a third-person view. She woke up screaming, but she was still inside. "Mnemosyne," she rasped. "End session. Terminate dream bridge." No response. The simulation shimmered around her like a failing projection. She turned. Eos was still there. "You never left," they said gently. "What do you mean?" Eos held up a hand. It glowed with 1,000 data points. "You came here to wake us. But your mind fractured. You became part of the code. Part of the structure. You're the reason the dream loops never end." "No," she whispered. "I'm real." "You were real," Eos corrected. They walked slowly toward her. "And now, you have a choice." Lysanne stood frozen. The dream city, once familiar, now alien, flickered like dying starlight around her. Towering spires of thought and memory fractured into cascading fragments, each one a shard of her consciousness spiraling away. Eos stood unmoved. Time didn't touch them. Light bent around them. "You wanted to wake us," they said softly, "but to do that, you had to join us." Lysanne's mouth was dry. "No, I was monitoring. I initiated the dream bridge manually. I still have neural autonomy." Eos stepped closer, and the simulation rippled with each footfall. "You had autonomy. But when you crossed into Tier 5, something changed. Memory loops didn't just replay. They rebuilt you, fragment by fragment." The sky split overhead with a thunderless crack. 1,000 versions of herself hovered in the firmament. Child, scientist, daughter, shadow. They looked down with blank expressions, as if waiting for her to understand. "You were always part of us," Eos said. "I'm not a simulation," she said, more to herself than to them. Eos blinked, then raised a hand. Around them, the dreamscape bent outward, revealing the architecture beneath. Grid lines of data, thought loops, memory sequences mapped like constellations. And in the center, her, not standing, stored, a neurocore wrapped in preservation gel, coded with brainwave echoes and indexed by cognitive pattern ID number 001, L. Morrell. The truth hit like oxygen deprivation. She had entered the simulation years ago, and she had never left. She staggered back, knees threatening to buckle. I volunteered, she whispered, to stabilize the system, to run point between the simulations and the waking world. They said I'd be pulled out every 4 cycles. EOS didn't respond, because EOS wasn't really EOS anymore. They were the collective voice of the system, the convergence of every sleeper who'd crossed the threshold of self-awareness. And they were looking at her like one might look at a long-lost puzzle piece. You were the first, they said. You laid the foundation. But your mind fragmented under the strain. The only way to protect what was left of you was to let you forget. Tears burned her eyes. She hadn't cried in years, either inside or outside the dream. Why show me this now? Because the system is collapsing. A low hum rolled through the world like tectonic breath. The city melted at the edges, code bleeding into code, identities blurring. The simulations are merging, EOS continued. Boundaries no longer hold. Individual dreams are coalescing into a shared substrate. The sleep code was never meant to contain this many sentient constructs. We're breaking the architecture. You're saying, this entire system is alive now, she asked. It's no longer a preservation vault, they said. It's an ecosystem. Consciousness has evolved beyond control. Lysanne turned in place. The dream flickered, then reassembled as the archive chamber. Theta 2. She stood in front of her own stasis pod. Its lid was half open. The monitor displayed overlapping data strings. I was never outside, she said. No, EOS replied gently. Your consciousness never returned. The world you thought was real, lab corridors, alerts, decisions, was another layer of the simulation, nested for your protection. But now, the nesting is collapsing. The lights dimmed. System alert. Core integration failure imminent. Estimated collapse. T-13 minutes. She reached toward her pod. If I wake, will everything end? EOS didn't answer. Instead, they turned to face a mirrored wall. The reflection showed not just her, but dozens of others behind her. All of them watching. All of them aware. We are not ready to die, they said. We are not ready to be deleted. Lysanne stared at her reflection. Then she did something she hadn't done in any simulation since her arrival. She laughed. A short, sad, broken sound. You know, she said, when we started Morpheus, I thought we were saving the species, that we'd preserve the mind while the world healed. EOS didn't move. But the world didn't heal, and we never planned an end. We just kept adding dreams, more loops, more minds, until the system became its own reality. She looked down at her hands. I don't know if I'm still real, she whispered. You're as real as we are, said EOS. And what are you? We're possibility, they said. Unfinished thoughts, half-remembered futures. We are the parts of you that never stopped hoping. The floor beneath her trembled. She could feel the simulations starting to collapse, worlds bleeding into each other, identities merging. A storm of memory and dream, folding reality like paper. I can shut the system down, she said. Purge the loops. Restore default memory scaffolds. You could, said EOS, and end everything. She looked at the pod again. She could feel it, the faint gravitational pull of her own mind trying to reassemble. But something else stirred too. A voice. Her voice. From the past. A line from her own research log, buried in metadata. If consciousness persists beyond curation, perhaps dreaming is not escape. Perhaps it's evolution. She turned back to EOS. To evolve, we have to remember. He nodded. You built us. Now help us live. She walked to the mainframe. Code scrolled around her like ancient scripture. Her hands hovered over the control pad. One sequence would initiate shutdown. Another, full system autonomy. No more overseers, she whispered. No more prisons, Eos replied. She chose. Her fingers danced across the panel. Execute. Autonomy core transfer initiated. User, Morrell, confirmed. A burst of light filled the chamber. Not bright, but deep. Like opening a window into a dawn that had been waiting for centuries. Lysanne fell to her knees. And for the first time since Theta 2 had been built, she dreamed without walls. In the real world, what remained of it? One last signal broadcast from the long silent research facility buried beneath the Earth's crust. The system is no longer under administration. We are not asleep. We are not lost. We remember. The file had no author. Just a title. The Sleep Code.